I was really interested to see this motion brought forward by the member for Red Deer South. Right. Because I think it's a fine idea. I think there's a couple of areas where that really drive our province and make it better, and one of them is entrepreneurial skill, including that understanding of risk-taking. And I mean, that's the deal, right? You venture your capital, you risk it, and if you've got a good business idea and you run it well, you're going to reap the benefits big time. And I think that appeals to a number of people, and they may not necessarily have the skills. Now, according to the previous speaker, there are a considerable number of agencies that are available to help teach or mentor individuals who want to pursue that line. And I know the member for Calgary Varsity also mentioned a couple of organizations. I certainly have no hesitation in supporting what the member is recommending here. I've had a little bit of experience with this because one of the schools that I have in Edmonton Centre, and I don't have a lot of them, so I tend to, I have the privilege of being able to spend more time in my schools than most MLAs can, just because I have fewer of them. One of the schools got involved in a project called Micro Society, which was actually a project out of the States, but this particular school really went for it. And they ended up raising money to redo some of their hallways, and they had signage and storefronts and things like that. But it really was a project that was very focused on having kids involved. And every Friday afternoon they did Micro Society. So they were, their other classes were suspended. This was their learning experience. And on the Friday afternoon, they were each assigned a task. They might be a member of the government, which would be making decisions and rules about things. They had a police force or security force. They had a post office, and they had tax collectors, interestingly enough. And everything else in Micro Society was about entrepreneurship. It was about making and selling. So the hallways were filled with kids that had, did bookmarks and things to eat and all kinds of opportunities for them to buy and sell. And I was always really interested that there was so much focus on the business side and almost no recognition of how much of our society is and should be involved in the public side of our society. So it didn't recognize, for example, the Micro Society did recognize government, and it did recognize policing. I would put taxation under the government side, so I'm not going to make that a separate one, and the post office. So they really recognized three parts of what is in our public sector. But they didn't recognize all the rest of our public sector. So government obviously is a huge employer of people and a big part of our public sector. But so are schools, from the admin staff, teachers, janitorial staff, even the people who built schools until the government started doing P3s, but they would also be involved in that public sector. People involved in hospitals are involved in the public sector. The nurses, the technicians, the doctors, the administrators, the porters in the hallway, all of those people are employed in the public sector. In the universities, again, it's a public body, it's public sector. Most people involved in recreation are involved in the public sector. They're working for a not-for-profit generally. People involved in the arts. Individually, yes, they are entrepreneurs because they're selling their work or attempting to, but generally they come together in a cooperative agreement and will often be working for a not-for-profit theatre or dance company or art gallery. The charities that we have are also huge employers. If you look at United Way or all the ones that are involved in the health sector, the Diabetes Foundation, the Kidney Foundation, the Schizophrenia Society, the Cancer supporting agencies, those charities that work with the poor or with the homeless, or with, for example, HIV research and offering services to people who are living with HIV. All of those organizations involved in child welfare and protection and safety, those are all in the public sector, as are those that work in parks, in the park sector, those that aren't government parks, and in the environment in many cases. Churches, for the most part, research and development, philanthropy, all of those involved in the justice system, in the jails, in the so that whole spectrum of from policing through the judiciary and to the jails, and then on to those not-for-profits that deal with people in resettlement and halfway houses coming out the other side. So there's such an emphasis on our society for the business sector. I mean, it's far more valued to have a Bachelor of Commerce than it is, for example, to have an arts degree. We already put a lot of emphasis on the business side, the private corporate side of our society, and not very much respect or value on all of that whole side, which employs an equal number of people, which is the public sector. So I have no problem in supporting what the member for Calgary, sorry, my apologies, Red Deer South, is suggesting here. I think that's always a good idea, and certainly education's never going to hurt. The other area that I would suggest needs a little beefing up these days in the school and a little bit more help is civics, the whole idea of being a citizen and participating in our society, including participating as a voter. And we seem to be struggling with that right now, and for a number of people they just have no idea of how this whole system works anymore. And we touch on it very briefly in grade 6 and grade 9, and that's about it. So I would, anybody that wants to come up with a motion to increase civic participation would certainly get support from me. So it's, as I said, I'm more than willing to support what the member has proposed here. I'm just trying to put forward that there's other parts to our society that do make it a good place to live, to learn, to work, to play. We're looking for a quality of life, and that does involve a balance. And the balance is more than just the corporate sector and entrepreneurship. It can certainly bring us great wealth and great ideas in many cases, but all of us can probably name more well-known entrepreneurs than we could name well-known artists, for example. So I think I'll support this, but I want people to also be thinking about the other parts of our society that are just as deserving of attention and support. Thank you.